First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua. That's all praise to the Most High God, in the name of His only begotten Son, who the world inwardly calls Jesus Christ, right? It's the brother Aliyah from the angels of Yahweh, right? Today I want to talk about, being a follower of wickedness, right? Because our people' main problem, the ones still in the world, Jake and Eve, they're followers. They want to, hop on what's trending. A perfect example, is Islam. Our people don't know what Islam is about, but since they're so simple, they see everybody else doing it, so they go ahead and hop on it, right? So this is the book of Exodus, chapter 23, verse 2. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment, right? So the point is, thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, right? What's the example of that? Like I just said, Islam, right? Another good example is down smoking weed. You just want to smoke weed because everybody else do it, right? You feel that it may be cool. You don't want to look like a lame, right? Let's go to the book of Luke, chapter 9, verse 26. Right? Like I was saying, you don't want to look like a lame to, your so-called friends who's trying to get you to damn smoke this blunt or whatever, or do any type of wickedness, right? Just because everybody else doing it, they trying to get you to do it too, right? So this is the book of Luke, chapter 9 and verse 26. For whosoever shall be ashamed of me and of my words, of him shall the Son of Man be ashamed, when he shall come in his own glory and in his Father's and of the holy angels, right? So if you're ashamed of your Yahushua, right, who the world inwardly calls Jesus Christ, you don't want to look like a lame, right? The Lord's He gonna be ashamed of you, because you couldn't, tell your so-called friends, right? No, I don't want to smoke a blunt, right? I'm supposed to be set apart as the law tells us to be. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 19. This is Leviticus chapter 19, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say unto them, Ye shall be holy, for the Lord your God am holy. Right? So we know in the Hebrew, the word for holy is kodash, which means set apart. So you can't be like everybody else. Just because you see, a lot of them other Jakes and Eves into Islam and all type of, manner of wickedness, that don't mean you just hop on it too. More than likely, your wicked friends ain't telling you to do something according to the scriptures, right? They're not, Let's go to, right, with Salaki. Let's see what had next. Right, Galatians 1 and 10. All right, because a lot of us seek to please men. We don't seek to please the Most High God. We care what other people think. Right? Was it 1 and 10? This is the book of Galatians, chapter 1, verse 10. For do I now persuade men or God? Or do I seek to please men? For if I yet please men, I should not be the servant of Hamashiach, right? Christ. So are we seeking to please others, or do we care more about what the Most High God thinks? Most of Jason Eves in the world, they care way too much of what other people think, right? They don't care what the Lord think. They don't want to look like a lame, right? And then they'll call you lame for right? Not taking a blunt they try to hand to you. Man, we don't give a damn about that, right? I don't care if they call me lame. Really, they the lame. Because they just like everybody else, right? You know, we the only ones different on this earth. The ones keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. The Lord said, you shall be holy, right? And being holy is keeping the commandments, right? Let's go to Hebrews. What is that? Hebrews 7 and 12. No, I believe it's Romans. The book of Romans. Right? Being holy is keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Right? Being set apart. Romans 11. Here it is, slot. Romans 7 and 12. Wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy, and just and good. Right? So the law makes you holy, meaning set apart. Right? Not them doing what everybody else doing, you know. Now you think you all cool, right? You different than everybody else. But in reality, everybody doing that. Everybody smoking weed, right? But everybody isn't keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, right? You know. How much people you really know keeping the law, statutes, and commandments? You know, not too much. So in reality, you would be the different one. You would be the one standing out, right? Let's go to Matthew, right? Because ultimately, it's just the blind leading the blind. Matthew 15 and 14. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 15, verse 14. Let them alone, right? Meaning, you know, to hell with them, right? To hell with your so-called friend trying to get you to smoke weed, right? Let them alone. They be blind leaders of the blind, right? So ultimately, it's just, you know, the blind leading the blind, meaning, right? You got one person who's, you know, the Lord gave them over to a reprobate mind, right? And now they got people following them, right? But the people following them going to be destroyed too, right? So you got a blind leading the blind, right? You want to lead them people alone. You don't want to be like them, right? And it says, and if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch, right? Because the leader, right, he don't even know where he going his damn self, right? So how the hell were the people that's following him, how they gonna know what's going on? Right? They both gonna fall into a ditch, right? They both gonna be destroyed. All right, let's go to the Apocrypha, Sirach 9 and 11. This is the book of Sirach, chapter 9, verse 11. Envy not the glory of a sinner, for thou knowest not what shall be his end, right? So just because you see, you know, maybe you have a Jake in the world, you know, doing all type of wickedness, but he may get all the girls, right? He may get a lot of money from the things he do, right? You know, maybe selling drugs to his own people or whatever, right? The Lord said, envy not the glory of a sinner, right? He don't know when his end is going to be, right? So just because he doing it, that don't mean you do it too, right? You know, because ultimately, hey, you start following him, he don't know when his destruction going to be. That's going to be the same thing for you, right? Now you living wickedly, you know, and the Lord may put you to death when you least when you least expect it, right? You know, let's see what else I got. Salaki. I had something else. All right, let's go to the book of 1 Peter. All right. You know, this is who we should be following, right? We shouldn't be following nobody else but this man right here. The greatest, most powerful man that ever walked the earth. 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 21. For even hereunto were ye called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that ye should follow his steps. Right? So you should follow who the world calls Jesus Christ, true name Yahweh Shai steps, not your friend in the world, right? They just gonna be destroyed. This is who you should be a follower of, right? It says that ye should follow his steps, who did no sin, neither was guile found in his mouth, right? So you should be striving to keep the commandments, right? As Hebrews 7:12 says, the law is holy, right? You shouldn't be trying to be like, everybody else, right? They just, more than likely, if they don't repent, they're going to be destroyed. You should be trying to be a follower of Yahweh Shai, right? But with that, I want to end it by giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying, right? Stop envying the glory of a sinner, right? Just because you may see them with a lot of money and, you may not have a lot of money, even though you're keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, right? But, at the end of the day, you stacking up riches in heaven, right? Let me find that verse real quick. Right, so this is the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 20. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doeth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal, right? So, ultimately, you may not have a lot of money financially, but at the end of the day, right, it's going to pay off, That's where patience comes in. Let me get one more precept. This is Sirach, chapter 1, verse 23. A patient man will bear for a time, right? Because it may seem like you're going through all hell and it's truth, right? The Lord said, a patient man shall bear for a time. And afterward, joy shall spring up unto him. Because at the end, you're working for the kingdom, right? It's going to pay off, Although you may see these wicked Jason E's, right, living it up, right? You can't be, too caught up on how the next, wicked person in the world is living, right? Your focus should be on this truth, keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, not being like everybody else, But with that, I'm going to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai again. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying, right? I want to say, Kwon Yasharala and Shalom.